Welcome back to your favorite St. Louis sports podcast, The Lounatics. After a long break, I'm back with my co-host and friend, John, who's chugging down the water tonight. We're sporting very different teams, although probably very similar feelings around both clubs right now in the Cardinals and Bruins, for those of you who are watching. And again, been a little bit of a delay, but not a whole lot happening in the St. Louis sports world, at least not a lot of excitement happening here in the St. Louis sports world. John, what's new with you, and what are you, outside of your water drinking, what are you up to?
Well, this is some good old-fashioned high-quality H2O, so I have to drink a lot of that. Super Bowl was last night. Oh, wait, we don't have rights to call it that. The big game was last night, which has me in a football mood. I do really dig the winter. God, why can't I think of what it's called?
Winter Classic?
Winter Classic. Yeah, I almost called it the Winter Warmup, but I'm like, that's not the same thing.
That's the
same month.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same month. Not the same thing. I almost bought both of those actually when I was at Rally House last month. Didn't, but I'm really digging them. They look great on you. So, you got that.
Yeah. The hoodie was a nice touch. I kind of like the feel of it better than an actual jersey. And I'm more likely to wear it more. I guess technically it's not a jersey, it's a sweater. And then the hat was like $6 on clearance. So I was like, yep, sure.
Yeah. There you go.
Man on a budget, man.
That's right. Well, yeah. And I skipped because I now have City season tickets. So, same.
Oh, rub it in. Just rub it in.
Had to.
Yeah. You guys are looking at one of the newest season ticket holders. Not me, John. For those of you who are watching.
Or listening. You're listening to one of the newest.
So, let's start with the Cardinal. Well, first, before we jump into our sports, do you see the ads yesterday during the big game for Battlehawks and the UFL?
I did not, because I did not watch the big game.
Well, they were putting a lot of ads out there, trying to get people pumped up around the UFL, because Fox is the one who hosts most of those games on their TV network. So I think it'll be interesting to see if they can get a good viewership going again for those. More importantly, since we are in Missouri, Kansas City Chiefs were in the big game, but they definitely were not ready with their offensive line for the Eagles' defensive line. There's some wonderful memes and videos going around if you enjoy laughter, but is what it is. And I think for me, my favorite storyline is the Jalen Hurts is never going to be good enough, gets benched in the national title game, has to transfer to be a starting quarterback again, makes his way to the NFL, and now has officially won a Super Bowl. So good for him.
Yeah. Hasn't stopped Alabama from talking about how he played there, though. Just want to point that out.
Yeah. So
screw you, Alabama. Everyone hates you.
Yeah. Nobody likes Alabama. So on to more relevant sports to us, St. Louis Cardinals. So I know that the first through 13th priorities for Mo right now is trading Nolan Arenado, but since he's not accomplished that, and spring training's coming up, players have started to kind of show up and start bringing their stuff down in Jupiter. What's your prediction for the Nolan Arenado saga, and what do you want to see happen?
I want to see him moved. I think that's best for him. I think it's best for the club. He is at spring training right now. He did report today, so that could go either way. I don't know. We're still waiting on Bregman, right? It really depends on which team signs Bregman. And supposedly, towards the end of last week, talks were heating up with the Red Sox to trade Arenado. But I don't know. My gut feeling right now, I mean, we still have like 6 weeks before the season starts. If he's still willing to be traded and something works out with Boston, he'll take it. But if they don't work it out with Boston, he gets moved at the deadline in July.
Yeah, he doesn't finish the year at Cardinal.
No.
I think it's very clear to me that Helsley is going to stay until the deadline, which I think you and I had talked about previously, and we thought that was going to happen anyway. Closer's value tends to be a lot higher for somebody who thinks that's the last piece to push them over the top than it is at
Yep.
spring training.
Yeah. 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 I do think they will highly consider trading Helsley at the deadline. But I don't think they're going to sell him for nothing either. But I don't know. Do you think they would re-sign Helsley? Do you think Helsley would re-sign here at the end of the season?
I think Helsley would resign here for the right dollar amount because he knows he's going. The fan base loves him. He's got his thing going. Like, I don't. I could see him re-signing here, if this year shows promise with the young guys.
Yeah.
Right. If I think if you look at the team and you're like, this team is still 3 or 4 years out from even sniffing the playoffs, he's going elsewhere. He's not re-signing here, right? Because I think all players want to win a championship. But if we finish the season 85, 82 to 85 wins, and he feels like we're about to turn a corner, I could see him signing to kind of be a part of that moving forward. And I think that would be a win for this team. Is that 85 win mark would be a huge win for this season with the amount of young guys we have that we're wanting to contribute. Because that would mean you would have had to have had some big contributions from some more of these young guys.
Yeah. Speaking of transactions, though, since you mentioned that, we did make one trade. And I think my message to you was, this is not the trade news I was hoping to hear today. We traded cash to Minnesota for center fielder Michael Hellman. Now, you may be asking yourself, who is Michael Hellman? And the answer is nobody knows. It's provocative. It does not get the people going. He has had 10 major league at-bats, but he is batting .300. So,
in his defense, that's 10 more major league at-bats than either you or I have had.
That you know of.
That's fair. Also, 10 more major league bats than some of our guys in the prospects have had. So that's, something. But also nothing. 10 is nothing. We're talking
10 is nothing.
Two games and a couple of pinch hits.
Yeah. Or basically. Yeah. That's all it is.
And again, why do we need another? My question is, why do we need more outfielders?
Yes, because we have so much playing room in our outfield as it is. I don't know. To be fair, center field is kind of a question mark, but I think it's going to be one of two guys, right?
Yeah. You have VS2 and you have Michael Ciani. And I'm like, I can see his face. He played all year last year. Tells you how excited I am about that.
And also, Newt could be a contender for that spot too, depending on how the rest of the lineup shakes out. But we know it's going to be one of those three guys. I don't know why we need him unless. Now, I am curious. Actually, now I'm thinking about it. Is he a right-handed batter? He is a right-handed batter. He could be that right-handed batter off the bench that Mo was saying that he wanted to go out and get. He's at 10 at-bats. I don't know if I would say that this is the guy that's going to come in and
change. Our right-handed bat. You know what? Screw it. He's our new DH.
That's right.
300 major league average. You should be excited. You should be. If I'm Mo, I'm feeling like you all should be thanking me for finding this gem.
I have to give them credit. They've already updated his picture on the website to Cardinals gear. So
he probably reported today, and they took a picture immediately. Hold on, we got to get this.
I know. He came in this morning probably, and they took the picture and uploaded it. But
so
yeah,
I did have some questions for you about spring training.
Okay.
Give me 2 position players and 2 pitchers that you're most intrigued to see how they perform this spring training.
I think Victor Scott II is an obvious one there for position players. I'm going to say Jordan Walker for the other. Those are our 2 guys who I think, as far as position players go, that we are most expecting to be like getting a lot of time at the major league level. They're the ones that are right there on the bubble in terms of being major league ready. And there's some debate on that. I know they both played a little bit already. So we'll go there. Pitchers. Oh my gosh. You could go with a lot of the pitchers. Tink Hence, I think, is an obvious one. I'm very interested in Graceffo. Really interested in Riley O'Brien as well, because we didn't get to see a lot of him. Yeah, Takoa Roby, I think, is the other one. I know you asked for two. That's four. But basically, any of the young pitchers, I just want to see who steps up.
So for me, I had actually did not have Jordan Walker on my most intrigued to see list. I had Victor Scott II to see what that looks like to him. I think Jordan Walker's already penciled in. He's going to be a starter. They're going to make, I mean, that's just is what it is. But Victor Scott is still kind of pushing for against Ciani for that center field spot. The other position player I'm really intrigued to see is actually Contreras on the move to first base.
Yeah. I'm going to add a third. Can I add a third after you're done?
Go ahead and add your third position, then I'll get into my pitchers.
Thomas Sagasay.
Yep, he almost cracked my list, but again, one of those guys, infield wise, could be a difference maker on our infield, and where do you plug him in at? That's always going to be that question.
I mean, I think he's probably. I mean, you could make the case that he's your utility guy if it's not Donnie, or your backup second baseman if, and this is completely dependent upon Arenado moving, right? Because if Arenado moves, Gorman becomes third baseman, right? And then Donnie probably becomes your everyday second.
Yeah.
And then coverage for everyone else.
Yeah. And then Sagasy would be your utility plug and play guy.
Right. Or your backup second baseman when you flex Donnie to everywhere else.
Yeah. Pitchers, Takoa Roby was one of mine. I think he's one of those guys that just his stuff is going to play. And then it was actually Michael McGreevy was the other one for me.
I wondered if that would be because he's the only one that I did not explicitly mention. And then
I was
thinking about it afterwards.
My thunder with him, but he intrigued me last year with the couple spot starts he had in the majors. He looked good, looked like his stuff could play, and actually looked a lot more promising than what I had ever thought maybe he would coming out of the minors. And so I'm intrigued to see if that was a flash pan situation because he was called up and there's no scouting report, or if that's something he can maybe push to the next level. And it's hard to, when we're looking at a lot of these minor league guys, ERAs can be inflated because their pitching coaches have them calling specific games, right? We want you to work on these two pitches this game. And so it can get a little predictable where some of these minor league guys can tee off knowing that they're trying to, put the finishing touches on a couple of pitches and get a good feel for them. And so when you come to the majors, that's all off. Right now, it's you need to win the game, and you're going to throw the pitch that's going to win the game, not this is the pitch I need to fix. And I think there's a lot there that I think people maybe don't understand or necessarily see if they're looking at just straight numbers for the minor leagues.
Well, I'm glad you said that because a talk I have a lot at work with one of my coworkers is that I don't think the Cardinals do a great job of teaching young pitchers how to pitch. Right. I think they teach them how to throw pitches. Right. But I don't think they teach them very well at sequencing, at, kind of all the other parts that go into the quote unquote art of pitching to confuse batters, to get them to, off their game a little bit. I think they focus a little too much on where exactly you put the ball and not enough on everything else. And then they end up tipping what they're going to throw or things like that. And I think that's why we've had a lot of young pitchers struggle coming up to the major league level the last few years.
I would agree. I think they do a lot of just that same ongoing piece. And it's funny that we're sitting here talking right about how good these pitchers are. And we didn't even mention Quinn Matthews, who some people consider to be our best pitching prospect. So it's, there's a ton of opportunity there And it's really just how does that play as the season goes on, and can the Cardinals capitalize on that, and do they know how to use that? And they haven't shown me that they can, but you know, it's Mo's last year, so who knows? Maybe anything goes now.
We also forgot to mention Cooper Sherpy.
Mm-hmm. Again, just are, there's so many guys with potential, and which of those guys become bullpen arms and which of those guys become starters. There's a lot of questions there, right?
Did JJ Weatherholt get invited to spring training? Do you know?
I thought he did.
Curious.
Um,
Trying to figure that out.
yeah, I thought he did, and it also makes you wonder with Sagasy, right? If Weatherholt is playing well, Sagasy could very quickly become trade bait.
Right.
Trade for what? I
Um,
don't know because
yeah.
Mo doesn't know, but
Weatherholt was invited, as well as Chase Davis, Cooper Chirpy, Quinn Matthews. Yeah. A few other guys that we probably don't need to mention, but interesting. He's probably another one. I don't think he's major league ready yet, but it does make you wonder because like he profiles as a shortstop mostly, right?
I think
And
he played shortstop. I think he profiles more as a second baseman.
interesting. If he profiles as a second baseman, that gives him a path. But if he profiles as a shortstop, we have an issue.
He does not, from what I've seen, he doesn't have the range that you need to play major league shortstop. He's good, but he's not that good. And he could be a backup shortstop, right? He could be your
Right.
second baseman and slide over to play short. When your starter needs a break, we all know who our starter is, so that's not an issue for us, right? As far as what between like, if there's one position on the diamond that we have locked down right now, it's shortstop.
Yeah.
Mason Wynn's not
That's
going anywhere. He's the guy. He made that very abundantly clear last year. And so I think that makes it JJ Weatherholt's only path truly. I guess he'd have two paths, right? Would be third or second, but I don't know that he has the arm strength for third, which is where I think second baseman is probably where he more profiles. Now, he could surprise me, but I know you said I don't know if he's major league ready. I think he's closer to major league ready because he's a 4-year starter. He was an
well,
actual
and
true
that's
senior.
the whole point of college ball anymore, right? Is that they're getting these guys 4 years closer that way. I've heard from a lot of different prospect, you know, people who follow and write about prospects that they do think he is going to have a short stay in the minors. That he is closer to major league ready than most of our other prospects.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So I don't know. I think spring training is going to be interesting. I think it'll be a great opportunity to see our young guys again. You don't want to read too much into it because we saw with Victor Scott the second last year, he was just raking on fastballs in spring training, and immediately got into the major leagues. And scouting report from spring training was don't throw him any fastballs, so they didn't, and he really struggled from that. So I think that's something to always keep in mind is what you see in spring training may not be the real deal. Now, defensively, things like, we were talking about a little bit ago with Contreras, that could be a big deal to watch is how does he handle first base defensively?
I think he'll be fine. I'm not worried about that at all.
I think he'll be fine, but there's always that like sliver of concern of like, okay, when, not just spot duty, but you're doing it every day, picking the ball. I mean, he's not going to be gold glove caliber Goldie, right? There's no Goldschmidt there
Well,
protecting your
that's what they
first
named the
base
award
outfield.
after, right? Was Paul
Yeah,
Goldschmidt?
yeah, for first baseman, yeah, that's why.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
That's what I thought.
all right, let's move on to the Blues. When the Blues are pretty going to be painfully short, I think.
They
Um,
still suck. They suck worse than they did the last time we talked about them.
yeah,
They traded half the team.
and then they just sent Bolduc down.
Yeah, that was interesting. I'd really love to hear your thoughts on that.
I don't. I'm struggling with them sending Bolduc down because to me, at this point in the year, I mean, you're not thinking about the playoffs anymore, right? I think they want to keep talking like they're thinking about the playoffs, but that's not where you're at right now. You need to be developing your young guys and building a winning culture and trying to do it the right way. And maybe that they're worried about Bolduc being a part of this current locker room, and maybe they're worried about it being maybe too toxic for him to be around too long. I would hope that's not the case. Um, I don't feel like we have guys who are ready to step up day in and day out, night in and night out, and they show up for big games and then they just fall off the face of the earth, right? You know, we played the two Stanley Cup finalists from last year in back-to-back games and looked like we can play with the best of the best, right? In 2 games in a row. And then to take those 2 games and lost both of them, right, in heartbreaking fashion. But to play them literally all the way to the wire and then to, think about, okay, yeah, but that's the same team that lost to Columbus again. It's the same team that gave up 5 goals to Chicago and almost gave that game away when there's no reason we should have, right? Like, and it's finding your game early. It's that first period. Like, we cannot figure out what we're doing in the first period of any game. And it's been an ongoing thing since last year, right? It's just only gotten worse. And so I'm at the point where you got to start looking at your big pieces and you got to start deciding whether or not those big pieces need to be traded and just overhaul the locker room, because I feel like the locker room and the team itself and the team mindset is the problem at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's part of what we've been seeing, right, with some of the offloading of players this year. I don't think Monte's messing around, right? Like, if you're not willing to go all out, if you're not willing to do the little things day in and day out, if you're not willing to fight for the note, like, you gotta go. And I'm okay with that. I mean, you and I have said for a long time that this team is missing something in their mentality. And I think it's the same thing with the Cardinals the last couple of years. There has been an edge that has been missing. And I think in professional sports, and especially hockey, like, you have to be playing with an edge at all times. Like it's a physical, violent game. And I don't think this team has had that for quite a while. So I'm totally on board with what you've just said.
Yeah. With that, I still don't think sending Bolduc down is necessarily the right. He's actually been one of your fairly more, as a whole, more consistent players this year. And he's played well. But I'm looking towards the end of the season. You're going to see some younger guys right there towards the end. Most importantly, Snuggerud, hopefully we'll see some game time the end of this season. I'm intrigued. To me at this point, right, I'm kind of where I was with the Cardinals in August last year, which is I'm going to keep watching the games. They're my team. I'm going to keep cheering them on, and I'll root for them every time they're on the ice. But I'm already looking forward to next year to think through who's still here, who's going to be our mainstays. And I got blasted on some clips that got posted from hopping on the Blues Fan Forum podcast when they were talking about, well, like, if you were going to trade Bennington, when do you do it? And I'm like, well, if you think you're going to trade Bennington, it's always better to trade him too soon than too late. So if you're going to do it, you do it now. If you don't think your window's in the next couple of years, you get as good of a return as you can and you build for the future. You make Joel Hofer your number one. And I know I got so much flack because of the way Jacob cut it and edited it. And I'm like, you're using me for clickbait, Jacob. So yes, Jacob, I'm calling you out on that. But also, I don't blame him for cutting it the way he did.
No, do not blame him at all.
Oh no, he cut it. It was great. He did a great job editing it. But and he didn't like, edit it to make me say something I didn't say. He just cut out the before and the after part of the conversation. So if people
cut out
more
the context,
they had to go in there to find the context. They had to go and see it. But I think I stand by that, right? The only player right now on this Blues team that I would say is untouchable for me as far as like the guys that have been here the last few years is Parayko.
Not Thomas. You wouldn't have Thomas that way.
I don't feel like Thomas has shown me he can lead the team.
Yeah. I mean,
And
I don't disagree. I'm just asking your thoughts on
I
that.
think he would be number 2 on my list if I was going to list a
Yeah.
second guy. It would be Thomas. But right now, I mean, like he's been in a funk and he hasn't shown me that he has what it takes to lead the team to that next level. And so why would I, if somebody came along and was offering an absolute haul for Robert Thomas, would I take it? Yeah, I would.
So you're saying you don't have a price for Parayko?
What are you willing to offer?
That doesn't matter. I'm just saying you just the description of the deal that you would accept for Thomas, an absolute haul. Parayko, if someone comes in and gives you an absolute haul, there's a good chance you take that deal too.
I get that. Shutdown defensemen are hard to find in the NHL, and he's proven that he is one. If you listen to McDavid, if you listen to McDavid talk, the player that he hates playing against defensively in the league is Parayko. He's said it time and time again because Parayko can skate right alongside him, and he's big, long, and he just gets in the way. And so when you have the defenseman that the best offensive player in the league doesn't want to play, you don't want to give that up. Now, if they're going to offer you a Matthew Tkachuk or a Brady Tkachuk, yeah, you're going to have that conversation. But realistically, the offers that you're going to get for Parayko, you're not going to take because you have one of the best defensemen in the league. And offensively, he's taken a step forward this year.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's just the way you described it. I just wanted to point out the part of it. I always forget how big Parayko actually is. And like you said that, I'm like, oh yeah, he is massive.
He is a large man, and he can move down the ice.
He can move, yeah. You would not think a man that tall would be able to skate as well as he does.
No. So when I think about big, tall, hockey players, I think of back in the days. I say back in the days, but 2010, 2011 timeframe when Brewer was on the team, and that guy was tall, lanky, and as goofy as hell to watch skate.
I know.
Conversely, you watch Parayko, who is roundabouts the same height. I think he's a stockier build. I mean, he's more proportional. Brewer's real tall and lanky, which did not do him any favors with how he looked skating. But man, Parayko he's smooth on the ice. He's a great player. And again, to me, he's the one player that would be the hardest to get / untouchable of the guys that have been there a while. Kyrou, Bennington, Thomas, I think they're all Shen. They're all on the, if the right offer comes in, you have to take it and you have to be ready to move on. I've been really, really impressed with Dylan Holloway this year.
Yeah.
I think he's been one of the better signings I've seen in recent years. And I'm very, very excited to see what the future holds for that guy.
Yeah. It's just they have to figure it out. And I do not currently have confidence. At least definitely not this season is over, right? I'm not going to do the math, but it's over. But we thought that this team would be at least as good as last year's team, and they are substantially worse. And that's concerning, but I don't know.
I think to me what's the most concerning is that it's the same flaws with the third coach, which tells me it's not the coach, right? It's the players or the mix of players.
Right. And do you remember what we said last year? If it's not the coach?
Yep. It's time to break it down. And I think you're starting to see that this year. And realistically, the what's his name? He was only here for Bannister. Bannister got the short end of the stick because they were struggling. They weren't playing super well this year. And then you all of a sudden have this amazing coach that comes on the market, and it's like, yep, well, you're not doing great, and this is the guy I know that can take us there.
Right. And to be, I mean, yeah, Bannister got the short end of the stick, but you and I both said that we don't think Bannister elevated this team, right? We both said that the team performed about as well under Bannister as they did under Berube before. Like, so, like, and this is why I'm not a GM of any sport anywhere, because I am not cutthroat, right? Like, this is good for Army for being willing to make that kind of move. It's kind of a dick move. It's not one I would be able to make, but like, it's probably the right move.
Yeah. No, I think it for sure is the right move.
It just sucks.
It sucks. It sucks for Bannister, and it sucks for the Blues too, because Bannister was their minor league coach who was developing and bringing guys up, and it's now he's out of the system because of this whole process. And it's the risk he took, and it's the risk the Blues took when they promoted him.
Right.
Speaking of GMs, how do you feel like sporting director Lutz Pfannestiel did this year in the offseason?
Well, okay. In the offseason, I think he did fine. I would like to go back to last summer and say over the last two transfer windows, he's done exceptional.
Yeah.
As far as this winter goes, I think he did fine. I think Baumgartel was probably a pretty good find for, especially on a free, especially if he gets back to his days when he was playing in the Dutch league and at Stuttgart, because I think he played at Stuttgart before. I think that was a really good find. I think Valum is very exciting. When watching him, like, did you watch the preseason games? Okay. So watching the like very crappy stream video of it, right? That looks like it's someone's cell phone. And I know it's probably just one of those like AI controlled like scouting cams, right? I know that's it. But you see some of these moves he makes and you're like, okay, that he did something. He beat a guy. Okay, sure. And then you see like the really good video from like the end line and you're like, holy crap. Like, and he's got a nonstop engine. When he smells blood, he is a full-on predator for sure.
So I've been thinking a lot about this. And I know Toyshirt's healing up a knee.
I think it's a groin, but yeah.
A groin, leg injury, lower body injury.
Yeah, lower body injury.
Lower body injury.
Lower body injury, yeah.
And assuming Toyshirt's healthy and ready to play, you've got Hartle, you got Toyshirt, you have Valum. Is it Valum or Wallum?
It's Valum.
Valum.
Yeah. He's Norwegian, right? Okay. Yeah, Valum.
So you've got Valum, but now you've got Klaus and you got Betcher. Of Klaus, Betcher, and Valum, who do you start?
Well, Valum's going to play wing back, right? So he's starting. He is penciled in. I mean, he came in on Monday and on Wednesday was starting at left wing back, right? And in the very next preseason game. And part of it is because he came in pretty fit, being midseason, right? Yeah. But also like there was like no like get used to this. Like, no, we're throwing you in there and letting you do your thing. He is definitely, I think, written in pen left wing back starter right now. I think what you're really asking is, of your two strikers, is it Klaus, Betcher, or Toyshirt who's the odd man out? And I think it's probably Betcher initially. I do think that it will be interesting to see if Klaus starts off really slow like he did last year, if it becomes Toyshirt and Betcher instead, especially if Betcher comes out hot like he did last fall. But I do think Betcher is probably the one who comes in off the bench, provided Toyshirt is ready to go. But it doesn't look like he will be by opening day.
No. Well, and then, again, we've seen him. We talked a lot about him playing more center midfielder, but Alm is another option up top. And depending on how he looks, does he slide into that role at some point too? I know they like him more as the kind of midfield type, but I'd be really intrigued to see him potentially up top in that striker role as well.
I can't remember what game it was, but I feel like in 2023 he had a game or
Orlando.
two where he
I
played
remember
as
the
a top two.
Orlando game he played, right? I think it was Orlando. He played a lot up top.
I can't remember, but I mean, and
Because
he
that was
gets
because
very
Gio broke
far
or
forward
did
anyway.
his elbow or whatever that Orlando game,
Right,
and then
right,
Alm came in for him.
right. So there's that. I do think Alm is probably also right wing back number two. You and I have talked a lot about this offline.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that opportunities there are going to be pretty slim, though, because I mean, Totland can play a full 90 pretty easily when he's fit. So I think it's really just provided he's healthy and he's not needing like a midweek rotation type thing. I think Totland's going to be the guy there every week because you don't really have to worry about subbing him most of the time.
So we talked a little bit about this formation wise, and I think we're going to be a lot more fluid in formation under Olaf than what we've seen in the past, as far as what our formation is and how it's going to adjust and potentially adjust on the fly during games as well, to try to keep people off kilter and off center. But I think the 3-back look is definitely the way that they're going to go with the players we have. You've got Vollum and you've got Totland that can play the wingbacks on either side. And now you've got, in the center defensive mid area, obviously we still have Durkin, who everyone knows the city runs on Durkin. And then you've got Leuven, you've got Hartle, you've got Toyshirt. I mean, like you've got guys, out the, I mean, our team depth across the board is so much better than I ever thought it would be in year 3.
Right. Well, and I mean, like, here's another way to describe it, right? Okay. Indy, Celio, Totland, or not Totland, Ostrak, right? Those are 3 guys who are subbing in every game, right? And those were guys who have been pretty consistent starters over the last 2 years for long stretches, right? And now they're depth pieces for us. Like that alone is a clear indication of how the quality of this team has improved. I do agree with you that the 3 center back look is probably the primary formation because we definitely used it in the first few preseason games. I thought the last game looked a little bit more back 4 a lot, but I don't know. I think there was definitely times where they looked like 5 in the back, but there were other times, like you said, where it's very fluid, where they looked more like 4 in the back, where Vollum is getting really far advanced and Horn was covering almost in more of a left back role. Yeah. I found 2 things that they said in that Wednesday game against Austin that were hilarious to me. Was it Austin? No,
Yeah.
the Red Bulls game.
Oh, the Red Bulls.
The Red Bulls. Although I saw them again at Austin. Hebert at right wing back getting called for an offside penalty. Okay. And then hearing them say Nielsen on the overlapping run. And I was like, no, that's not Nielsen. And then I looked and I'm like, oh, wait, it actually is Nielsen. Nielsen is in the freaking box right now going for a header. Like, what the hell is happening? So I do think it is very fluid. And that's okay. I'm excited about that. I think that's how you keep your opponents off guard and unable to really account for what's happening is by having players move like that.
Well, and the thing that we've ran into both seasons is that, we lack creativity, right?
Yeah.
Last season, for a little while, really the only creativity we had was coming from Celia and Ostrak. And when those 2 went down, we didn't have it again until we ended up with Toyshirt and Hartle. So, like, there's guys that you have to get out there and have to be ready to play. And again, being more fluid, it allows for more creativity, for more play off the ball. I mean, we all saw how much more involved Leuven was in the attack once he was more comfortable getting forward and felt like he could. And I think that's something that I'm excited to see. I think, we touched on it, with Celio and Ostrak, kind of being depth pieces now. But you also have to think about, at what point are they going to, knock that wall down, knock that door down to where they have to be players or played more often. Because, Celio did that pre-injury, had kind of forced his way into the lineup, right? He was City 2. Then in season 1, he kind of forced his way into the team. And then in season 2, he had forced his way into a starting role before he, suffered that injury. It'll be interesting to see how quickly and if he continues to regain form. And, again, I don't want them to rush either player back too soon or too quickly, but seeing what I've seen out of them already in the early preseason games, I'm encouraged with what I see. And I think being in the Open Cup and the Lamar Hunt Open Cup this year is going to be huge for us to get extra minutes for some of those guys.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that. I mean, especially for those like the homegrowns and those guys that are kind of on the bubble. One thing that was really concerning to me too, I think in both preseason games. So there were definitely times against Austin where we had like two center backs at the back, where one of them looked like they were pushing up in the midfield, and then both wing backs were really, really high, like in every game we've watched. And I'm a little worried because in the last few years we've been beat by having that ball kicked deep down the wings to speedy wingers, which most teams in MLS have at least one very fast winger. So I am a little worried about that for us. But we'll have to see. I do think Volum is another one who's really creative as well. So I think he's going to pair very well with the rest of them, but it's going to be how well can he track back and cover. And I do think, we've seen Hebert out there. Hebert is not Thomas Totland. So like, I'm not as worried about that on that side when we get Totland in, because Totland is faster. So I don't know, just some thoughts I wanted to mention while I was thinking about him.
No, you're good. I think it's, again, we went into last season with high hopes, right? Because season 1 was so good, but we also expected a regression. I think injuries and at times poor management of in-game strategy at times kind of doomed us a little bit.
There's no adaptation, right?
Rigidity in the game, right? It was, this is our game plan and we're sticking to it, and not being able to change as the game flow changes and goes on. And so I think, you saw us give up a lot of leads and end up with a lot of draws that should have or could have been wins, which kind of did us in early. But I'm back to a lot more excitement this year. I think I'm more excited about this season as far as what our team could do than I have been either of the first two. And again, we talked about it, right? Our team, as far as quality goes, is so far and away and above where it was, especially last year, but even more so 2 years ago, right? And so the one, like the best like quality level wise player that we've had that we've really lost, right, went over and is now playing in Serie A and in Italy. And so like, is he back?
No, Nico, let's see, he got loaned for the back half of last season to Cincinnati, did nothing there, got sold a few weeks ago to a team in Greece.
Oh, I did not know he got sold. So I knew he got loaned, but
he's not a Serie A level player. And that's fine.
Division 2 for them, Serie B or whatever it is they call it, or whatever. Like, I think he's there, which is more MLS level. But he was a good player for us, and he got picked up by them as they were being promoted. So that there's a lot there to consider. But outside of really losing Gioacchini, I mean, like, we haven't lost a lot of our top quality guys, and we've just added to that. It's like you said, we've taken guys that were solid contributors and now they're role players. I mean, we've hardly talked about Indy, and Indy is an absolute spark plug and can play pretty much anywhere on the field. So, I mean, I think back to the Sporting Kansas game that he essentially took over, right?
Year 1. That was awesome. That was fantastic. That was the first one, wasn't it? The first time we played them at City Park.
It was at City Park, and I don't remember if it was the first or the second time, but either way,
I think it was the first one.
Indy absolutely took that game over, and it was just, I mean, he earned the PK, he had the goal, he was doing everything. And I think he still has that in him. And I'd be intrigued to see. Again, we've got Indy, we've got Ostrak, you've got Celio. You have to find minutes for.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think all of those guys are late game subs, right? I think they're playing every match. They're just, playing the last 30. I am very interested to see who replaces Leuven. So far, since he's been back, it's looked like Ostrak, which is good. I think Ostrak probably is the guy there. And, year one, we saw Ostrak very much as an attacking midfielder. And then when Leuven, when his wife had to start undergoing chemo and all of that, and then I think Leuven also had an injury in the middle there, we started seeing Ostrak play box to box. And like, we're like, hey, that actually like works really, really well once he got settled. There were a few games at the beginning where his spacing was off, but once he got settled, he looked really good there.
Honestly, I felt like he looked better there than he did as on the attacking
Oh,
side.
yeah.
And
Yeah, for sure.
so I think I agree. I think he's the sub for Leuven, or Durkin potentially. I think JGR is the Durkin sub, but I could see them bringing Ostrak in for Durkin if Leuven's playing well and pushing Leuven back to the Durkin
Yeah.
play deeper, especially if we're trying to
Yeah.
hold a lead.
I do want to mention, because we've mentioned Durkin several times, he said he was going to be ready by the start of the season. I don't think that's true. I don't believe that. He has not made an appearance yet. We'll see if he comes in on Wednesday. They have another closed door friendly on Saturday. This episode's going to publish Wednesday morning. So if you're listening to it, that day, you'll know. But if not, probably be after the fact, and we'll know if he makes an appearance on Wednesday. JGR is even farther behind him. And so then we're looking at Watts being the starting defensive midfielder. And I've always kind of felt Watts was not, I've never really been that terribly impressed with him as a midfielder. I like him on the wings, don't really like him in the midfield. That's a question mark that we have to figure out by the first game. And maybe it is Watts, and that's what they're going to roll with, but that's a big drop off for us.
I could very well see them pushing Leuven back and bringing in Indy if he's game fit.
Yeah.
To play more of the Leuven's box to box type situation, and kind of letting Leuven and Indy play the Dirk and Leuven roles.
Yeah.
But with Indy a little bit higher.
You could also just let Indy play defensive midfield. I know early in 2023 we did that several times.
Yeah.
Because of fitness for Blom specifically. But I mean, I like Indy farther up. I really don't want to mess with what Leuven's doing in the attack though. And yeah. Indy can cover ground the way Durkin can cover ground is what I'm getting at. So yes, I don't want to use Indy in that way, but I don't want to mess with what Leuven does. So I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I could be fine with either.
Would you rather see Indy or Watts there? I think I'd rather see Indy.
I would rather see Indy, but then you also start thinking about like, okay, well, who are we going to bring in at 60, 70 minutes as well? And like, I can see that, but Watts is fine as a defensive midfielder. It's just not where I think I don't think it's his best position, and I don't think it puts the team in the best position to win most of the time.
I think Watts plays best outside. I agree with you. I love Watts, so like I don't want to take anything away from the guy. He's a great player. But he's, again, I think he plays better on the outside. And I think for me, the more I think about it, I think Indy has to be the guy there. And I know you're talking about late game subs, and I'm like, we've listed so many guys offensively late game sub. I mean, we've got you still with what we're talking right now, pending what happens with Toy Shirt. Toy Shirt could be a late game sub.
Yeah.
If he's not game ready. You've got Celio, you've got Ostrak. There's 3 offensive late game subs right there. Yeah. And that's without really digging very far, very deep onto the team or the roster. And so you've got options there. Where does Alm?
Yeah.
God, So I mean, like you've got other options. So for me, it makes sense for Indy to go there because you have so many. We have enough other good options
Yeah.
offensively. Where do you again? You do all those things, but I don't know.
While you're thinking how to say that, another I think benefit to putting Indy there is there's a legitimate case to be made for most teams that you need to put your best 11 players out there at all times, right? And like, yeah, you want to also have your top 11 lineup to it, but that if he's, the one of the best 11 players and putting him in that position makes the team better, then that's what you do. That's a legitimate argument that you hear sometimes if someone can play a position serviceably well. And I think Indy can.
No, I agree, and he can. I mean, he's shown he can. So we still have a couple players though, and we kind of have to figure out where they fit in or what we're going to do. And one of the ones that I keep thinking about as we're talking about all these midfielders is Miguel Perez.
He did not play in the last game. He's been a sub for Watts several times, so we'll see. A lot of people think he's going to be playing all the time at City too. I could see him making the bench in the first game if Durkin's not ready at all. And if Watts has a rough game, like they could go to Perez. I don't know. I was really hoping we'd see him in the last game, and we did not, though.
I'm just, he didn't get as many minutes. Again, there's a lot of adjustments there, and I still believe him going to Birmingham was the best thing for him in his development. I really do believe that. I think him getting away from home, getting to kind of be an adult and learn how to be an adult outside of the comforts of home a little bit was really important. And then to play against grown men every day. I think City 2 is the same way that Vincel is with City 2. They're going to just absolutely, it's not going to be even a challenge for them. Whereas the USL is as much, again, playing against grown men, they're doing different things. And I think that would be good for both of them. If we have the minutes, yes, put them on the team, whatever, let them play. But I just don't see currently the way the roster is constructed where we're going to have minutes right now until we have injuries. Again, injuries are always going to happen. I just don't see the minutes there for Miggy or for Vincel.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. I have nothing to add to that. We'll have to see. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. Time will tell. But I mean, at least our coach scored a goal in the stadium that he who shall not be named built. So that's that's a fun tidbit, right? St. Louis gets the coach, gets the player who scored that first goal.
It is. Yes. I don't know what you want me to say. You're looking
I
at me
don't know.
like you expect me to say something.
I was hoping you would smile or laugh or do something, interact with me. No,
Well, I had to make sure my mouse was working because I know what's coming next.
no. But yeah, no, you're good. So again, we've done good things. We've got good things coming. And more importantly, Stan Kroenke's team seems to not have a whole lot going on out in Colorado. And I plan and hopefully we'll keep it that way. So with that, everyone, Stan Kroenke, we hate you. And good night, everybody.